Now, of course, one of the reasons that makes Dubai and the UAE such a great option to move to is how easy it is to get residency in the UAE. I always say that as long as you have a way of making money or you have money, there is a way for you to get a residency visa in the UAE, and the process can also be completed normally extremely quickly, depending on what you're doing, anywhere from 2 weeks to even as low as 1 week if you are using the right service provider. However, there is one question that a lot of people moving to the UAE are certainly going to have, which is that can you bring your family to the UAE? And what is the process like to actually bring your parents or your children or your spouse or your girlfriend, boyfriend to the UAE with you? So I actually just went through the process of bringing my girlfriend here to the UAE to live with me. She now has an Emirates ID and the residency visa. So in this video, I will go through the entire process of how you can bring your family to the UAE, how this depends on the kind of visa you have, what the different options you have are, and how the process differs on the kind of family members you're looking to bring, and also the cost for this depending on the type of process that makes the most sense for you. Now, of course, just like always, if you're looking to move to the UAE, there's two ways to do it. You can either do it yourself directly with the government, or you can use a service provider. Doing it yourself can be a great option if you don't have that much money and you're just looking for the cheapest possible way, but it's going to be a much more difficult process. You're going to have to do a lot of research, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and it's going to be a very stressful process. But if you have even a little bit of money, if you are making money, it really doesn't make sense for you to do that. You should use a service provider who can just take you through this entire process. Now, sadly, a lot of the service providers in the UAE are not that good. So if you're looking to work with a service provider who's actually going to be good, who is actually going to take you through this entire process with no hassle, all the way from leaving your home country to becoming a resident in the UAE, including bringing your family here, if that is what you're looking to do, I can highly recommend that you work with the same team that I have been working with for the past 2.5 years. They have helped more than 800 people relocate to the UAE, whether that's through setting up a company, buying a property, or whatever makes the most sense for you. And if you're interested in this process, you can even book a free consultation with them from the first link down in the description, or you can also scan this QR code right here to speak to them directly on WhatsApp for an even faster response. Now, when it comes to sponsoring your family, there are broadly 4 ways to do this. And this depends on the relationship you have to this family member that you're looking to bring, i.e. are they a parent or a child or a spouse or whatever, and also the visa that you have here in the UAE. Now, of course, the first way that you can bring any family member here to the UAE is to use tourist visas and do visa runs on a regular basis. This is something that you can do in the beginning if you're still thinking about whether you actually want to stay here before you commit to getting them a residence visa, but in the long run, I would not recommend this option for a couple of reasons. First of all, obviously, it's a lot of hassle. A lot of countries do get 90 days visa on arrival in the UAE, so you could use that, then leave the country and come back. But a lot of countries also don't get this visa on arrival, which means you have to apply for a tourist visa online. Now, it's an easy process to get that. It's nothing difficult, but then there's a lot of hassle. For example, my girlfriend, who is from Indonesia, has to get this tourist visa, and what we had to do in the first year when she was just here on a tourist visa is first get it for 60 days, and then what you have to do is extend it twice for another 30 days. So you always have to keep paying those renewal fees. You always have to remember to renew it. And then you always need to have a flight booked out of the UAE within that visa validity period and everything like that. So it's just a lot of hassle. And also, it really doesn't work anymore in the long run because there is a new rule in the UAE that if you have a tourist visa and you leave the country, you need to be out of the country for a minimum of, I believe it was 1 or 2 months, I can't remember exactly, before you can get a new one. Now, this actually got us into a lot of complications because what we were going to do is simply leave the UAE, go to Oman, get a new tourist visa for her and come back. But then we learned that we can't actually do that. So we actually had to fully leave the UAE much earlier than I would have normally done in the summer. So really, I do not recommend doing this long term at all, but it can work in the beginning. So now for long-term option, let's first talk about sponsoring your parents, your children, or your spouse, where you have like a legal relationship to this family member. And the way you do this depends on the kind of visa you have. So first, let's talk about the situation where you have an employment visa in the UAE. Let's say you're working for a company, or you have an employment visa via your own company, which is what a lot of business owners who move to the UAE do, at least in the beginning. Now, the good news is that you can sponsor your parents, you can sponsor your children, and you can sponsor your spouse just with the employment visa. You do not need to have a golden visa to do this. However, there there are some restrictions. First of all of these sponsored family members will get their residence visa in the UAE only for 1 year. Even if your employment visa is valid for 2 years, they will only get it for 1 year, and they will need to renew it every single year, meaning they need to do the medical test, go through the renewal hassle every single year, which is not too bad. Like, it's a very quick process, but it's just something you need to obviously remember to do every single year. On top of that, when it comes to children, there are some restrictions. When it comes to daughters, you can only sponsor daughters if they are unmarried. And when it comes to sons, you can only sponsor them until the age of 25. You might be thinking, well, why is it like this? But the UAE is still a Muslim country after all, so this obviously reflects that different culture. And obviously, in any case, when you're bringing your family members, they need to pass a medical test. So if they're not medically fit, as in they have AIDS or they have tuberculosis or something like that, this residence visa will be denied. So that is something that is good to understand. And this is obviously the case also for yourself if you're on a normal employment visa or something like that. Now, the cost for this will be the cost for a normal residence visa, which is going to be 3,700 dirhams plus all the fees for the medical test and the Emirates ID application or something like that. Let's call that an extra 1,000 dirhams. So roughly 4,500, 4,700 dirhams or something like that in total per sponsored family member. Now, things get a bit easier if you have a golden visa in the UAE. Now, as a golden visa holder, you can sponsor all your family members the same as an employment visa, but the big difference is that the residence visa for your family members will be granted for the same duration as your golden visa. So if you have a 10-year golden visa and you bring your parents, they will also get a 10-year visa rather than an annual visa, as in the case where you had the employment visa. And the other benefit is that you can bring your children regardless of age. So even if your son is above the age of 25, you can still bring them as a golden visa holder. And you can also sponsor domestic helpers if you have the golden visa. Now, the cost here is going to be more per person at around 6,000 dirhams, give or take, with all the fees. However, obviously here, that is for a 10-year visa rather than a 1-year visa. So overall, in the long run, you end up paying much less. So if you do have a golden visa yourself, whether it's through buying property or something like that, and you want to bring family, that is definitely something that you should go for. And again, if you yourself are looking to get the golden visa, you want to understand all the different ways to get it, just book that free consultation with my team from GenZone. They can help you. They know all the ins and outs of what might work for you. And there's actually a lot more categories for this that you might actually realize. So that takes care of sponsoring your parents, children, and spouses where you have a legal relationship. Now, what about bringing your unmarried partners? Like, let's say you have a girlfriend, but you're not married yet, or a boyfriend if you're a female. How can you bring them? Well, obviously, in this case, you cannot get them a dependent visa like you could for your legal family members. What you need to do if you are a business owner is hire them via your company. So what is happening here essentially is that you are giving them a job via your company if you are a business owner here in the UAE, and they essentially get a real employment contract just like you have via your own company. And this is exactly what I did for my girlfriend. I hired her as my executive assistant. She works very hard as my executive assistant, and what happens is essentially the same process as when you got your employment visa via your company in the UAE. You will give them an employment contract. They will get an entry visa to enter the UAE. They will go through the formalities, the medical test, Emirates ID application, biometrics, everything like that, and they will get a 2-year employment visa just like you have. And essentially they are officially just an employee. They are not your dependent, meaning they are tied to your company and not tied to you personally. Now here, the only restriction is that technically you need to pay them a salary of minimum 5,000 dirhams a month. I believe this might depend on the free zone, at least with the free zone that I have. This is the minimum. Now, does anyone check if you actually pay this? No, but just to be safe, you might want to pay this. And then privately, you can have some sort of arrangement where, let's say, you from your company, you send the salary to your girlfriend, and then privately you agree that then she sends it back to you personally as like rent payments or like whatever arrangement you want to do privately. That means that you are fully compliant in case anything ever happens. And obviously, her sending the money to you personally, there's a private agreement between you and her. So you're not gonna get into any trouble from your company side because your company is officially paying that salary as they should. Obviously, this is not legal advice, but that is at least my understanding of the situation. Now, the cost for this is gonna be the same as your employment visa, which is 3,700 dirhams for this 2-year period, plus again, the fees for the medical test and for the Emirates ID. So let's call that an extra 1,000 dirhams on top of that. All the way you need to realize here is that in order to hire someone from your company, you also need to upgrade your license. So your license normally comes with a certain number of visa slots. So if you started the company with just you in the company and you want to bring your partner under this company as well, you first need to upgrade the license, which is going to cost an extra 4,000 dirhams, which just means that you're now allowed to hire someone else and have 2 residence visa by this company instead of 1. So that takes care of all of the details. Whether you are bringing your parents, your children, your spouse, or your girlfriend, boyfriend, you have a way of bringing them into the UAE. But I hope that this video gives you a comprehensive guide on exactly what to do. Again, if you want help with this process, you want someone to do this for you, you can book that free consultation down below with Jenson, the team that I've been working with 0 issues for the past 2 years. If you have any questions, you can also ask them down below in the comments, and I will be happy to answer them. Now, if you're interested in the specific details of relocating to the UAE as a business owner, what is the process to start a company? How do you leave your home country? How do the taxes work? Everything like that. I made a full guide on this entire process, which you can watch right here. So watch that video next, and I will see you in the next video.